What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
We had hinted at the beginning, you looking at, and it's come up in some of the conversations, you looking at the concepts of like the size of the universe and extraterrestrial life and how that could equate with even some of the things you believe in the Bible. I know one of the things you have said on camera earlier in the conversation had to do with the fact that the Bible said that, Jesus was sent here one place, one time, one man, something like that, for all. So the for all could signify that there's other species that exist in other places. But to start it off, like when did you, at what point in your life did you start to get curious about the existence of extraterrestrial life and what, when did you get into it?
Probably when I was 7. I mean, that's when I started reading all these books on astronomy, and that was part of what I was curious about. Is this universe a habitat for more than one species like us? And what about all these, I remember as when I was a child, there was a big debate. Is the sun the only star that's got planets orbiting it? I mean, that wasn't settled. Now we know that virtually every star's got planets orbiting it. So then the question is, well, how many planets do we have that are just like our planets? I remember when the first planets were being discovered outside of our solar system. That was 1995. And they were saying, we're going to find hundreds of planets just like the planets in our solar system, and many just like planet Earth. Well, here we are in 2023. We have discovered over 5,000 planets outside of our solar system. Not a single one is like any of the planets in our solar system, which led to a discovery on the part of astronomers. We thought that Earth had to be fine-tuned for advanced life. We now know that all the planets in the solar system have to be fine-tuned to make advanced life possible here on planet Earth. So when our family celebrates Thanksgiving, we thank God for Neptune, we thank God for Uranus, we thank God for Venus and Mars, all the planets, because every one of them has to be exactly the way they are in order for us to have Thanksgiving dinner. And even the asteroid and comet belts. We now see asteroid and comet belts around other stars. They fall into 2 categories. Stars that have asteroid and comet belts 1,000 times bigger than ours, and those that have no asteroid and comets at all. If you want advanced life, you need 5 asteroid and comet belts just like the 5 here in our solar system. We see them nowhere else. And so it's like we got a lot of reasons to thank God. Not just our moon, not just our Earth, not just our sun, but literally everything plays a role in making our existence possible in this universe.
But to go back to the beginning of what we were getting at, like, did you, as a child, did you subscribe to like, oh, UFOs come here and visit us? Or were you just totally unsure?
I didn't get into UFOs. I was basically interested in the stuff that we could see and measure, the stars, the galaxies. But when I was 16, I was the director of observations for the Astronomical Society in Vancouver, British Columbia. And I remember telling all the other members, we need to have a booth at the Pacific National Exhibition. And said, hey, we can get all these people visiting our booth to help grind our mirrors. So we get a lot of free labor. Let them grind our mirrors for us. But they put us right next to the Flying Saucer Club. So people would visit the Flying Saucer Club, then they come over and say, hey, what do you think? And I'd say, well, what you saw was not a flying saucer. It was the planet Venus, or it was the Pleiades, or you saw, a fireball go through the atmosphere. And so I was able to explain about 99% of what people thought was a UFO. But there was 1% that didn't fall into the category of a natural explanation, secret military activity, or a hoax. And this
Can you explain that 1% and what that is?
I can now. At that time, I couldn't, mainly because I wasn't a follower of Jesus Christ yet. But when I became a Christian, I realized it's not just physical reality. There's non-physical reality. The angelic realm is real, but not physical.
So you believe that any quote-unquote UFOs are angel and demon related?
Well, what I first discovered is these UFO phenomena, the 1%, not the 99%, they clearly violate the laws of physics. They're observed going through the atmosphere at thousands of miles per hour, yet there's no sonic boom. There's no heat friction trail behind the, quote, craft. And there's 2,000 cases where they're documented as they're crashing into the Earth. You go to the crash site, you see a shallow crater. If there's snow, the snow is melted. If there's vegetation, the vegetation is damaged. But when you go around the crater site, there's no artifacts, there's no debris. It's like when an airplane crashes into the Earth, there's lots of debris to recover. With a UFO, there's nothing. But the fact that you got a crater, the fact that you got melted snow and damaged vegetation, something real must have done that. And yet they violate the laws of physics. And I'm not alone. There's 6 physicists besides myself that have spent at least a decade studying the UFO phenomena. They all agree with the one who's put the most research into it. That's Jacques Vallée. He's a French astrophysicist.
Yes. He's friends with our guy, James Fox.
Yes. Well, he basically says we're dealing with something interdimensional.
Yeah.
It's something that's not constrained by the dimensions of the universe. You mention angels, they would be a possible explanation because they're interdimensional beings. So that's a possibility. The other thing I noticed is that it was Alan Hynek, the American astrophysicist in the 60s, that came up with the term close encounters.
Yeah.
Because he made the point, it's the close encounters that are difficult to explain. And that's where you come within 500 feet of the UFO phenomena. That's
there's 3 kinds. There's 3 kinds, right?
Yeah, first kind, you come within less than 500 feet of the phenomena. Second kind is where there's communication going on.
Yes.
So he says, we're dealing with beings. These are interdimensional beings because there's communication going on. And then Jacques Vallée and others have made the point, we're dealing with something that is not benevolent. Because when people have these close encounters, it's always harmful. The best you're going to come away with is recurring, terrifying nightmares. Worst case scenario, you get killed by the phenomena, or your animals get killed or injured.
Harmful
Harmful to
just
the human.
after?
Harmful to the human contactee.
Yeah, but during?
During or after.
So there are a lot of supposed sightings where it's not during, and I could
Yes,
think
that
of some
does
where it's
happen.
not
Yes.
like are you familiar with the '94 Zimbabwe?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I mentioned, often there's nothing happening at the moment, but they wind up having these nightmares that recur. I mean, that's very commonly reported amongst the 1%.
But so those children, for people who aren't familiar with that case, we discussed it in episode 138 with James Fox. But those children were part of like an international school in Zimbabwe. They were playing on like the edge of the school grounds, and they reported these beings who were the size of them, who were friendly, and were observing them, and were communicating with them telepathically. And I believe what the message that they were sending to the children was that you humans need to be careful with your technology. I'm paraphrasing here. You need to be careful with your
Right.
technology because you could destroy yourself. And then if you look at James's other big case that he actually just made a documentary on, Moment of Contact, which we did another podcast, number 139, specifically on that one.
Aqui, ó. Aqui. Aqui. Aqui, ó.
Here.
Aqui, ó. Aqui, ó.
Here.
Aqui, ó. Aqui. Aqui, ó. Uf. Aqui, ó. A cerca da casa era aquela, ó. Foi aqui que caiu. Seres morreram aqui.
In that case, one of the sightings was the message was you humans have no idea what your potential is. And so I point these out because neither of these are negative things. Neither of these are satanic things to say to somebody, right? And so doesn't that put a little bit of a hole in that argument that it's always negative?
Well, for example, this is not a new phenomenon. It's been going on for thousands of years. And so, like, you've got the Irish talking about leprechauns. I mean, they appear in different forms. What I find interesting is that with the UFO phenomena, it was slow-moving dirigibles in the atmosphere 100 years ago. World War II, it was the Foo Fighters moving at the speed of sound. Today, they're moving at 25,000 miles per hour. They seem to be keeping pace with our aircraft technology. And they keep changing their story. 100 years ago, they said we're from the backside of the moon. When the lay public became aware that's not credible, they said, well, we're from Venus. When people became aware of how warm it is on the surface of Venus, they said we're from Mars. Now they're saying they're from another planetary system. So the fact that we see the stories changing and the way...
When did they say, just brush up my history a little bit, when did they say Venus and Mars? Like, when are some of those sightings? Are those, I assume, pre-World War II?
That's pre-World War II. Yeah, and after World War II, they were saying Mars, but when you get to
They did?
Yeah, but when you get to the 60s and 70s, they were saying, no, we're from a planetary system.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.